So Roger, get us started. 2 minutes for an opening statement, please.
2 minutes. Well, my name's Roger McKinnon, and I am a candidate running for mayor of beautiful Nanaimo. Some of the reasons I'm running, because I've been here for 37 years since I graduated from, it's called Malaspina College, which is now the university, obviously, up on the hill. Been involved since I graduated there, 35 years in the business field, from real estate to owning a few different businesses in town to a lot of the charity work I've been involved in. And just been on quite a few committees at City Hall, from design panel to I was the vice chair of Imagine Nanaimo with Mayor Joy Leach over 20 years ago. So I've watched the city grow, and being in the real estate and consultant as well. I've worked in a lot of other cities over the last 10, 12 years, from Kelowna to Victoria to Langford to Comox Valley, and seen some of the stuff's happened. Here I've been involved in the same thing in a lot of subdivisions north of town or middle of town to condominium sales. Probably sold more than 1,000 townhomes and condominiums for people, from seniors homes to everything. So part of what mine is to just do some changes. We've got to start moving. We're a big city now, and we have to make sure we act like that. There's a lot of things we do need. We've got to attract some new jobs, new businesses, stop the fighting over our social housing we're doing for the last while, build the City Hall as a community, or build City Hall as a team, like I've done with different charities that I'm involved with, and as well, where you got a team play and you got to really work together. And right now, I feel we're not, and that was one of the reasons I got involved. And I think there's some work we can do with the community, with staff, and with everyone that works at City Hall, and make sure at the same time everyone's having fun as they do it. Because people have been asking me how the campaign's going. I said this is the most 5 weeks that I've had a lot of fun in a lot of years. It's actually been very interesting, lots of fun, and I'm looking forward to it. So please, if you got any questions or calls, just call me. And again, make sure you vote on the 19th for somebody and for council as well. Appreciate it. That's Roger McKinnon. Thank you.
Thank you, and right on time too, I think. Mr. Ruttan, please.
Well, I'm Mayor John Ruttan, and I'm looking for my second term on council as the mayor. I think we've accomplished quite a bit, actually, in my first term of 3 years, mayor and council. And I think one of the things I'm particularly proud of is the Economic Development Corporation that's been set up. It was set up originally to try to spin off, if you wish, the involvement of economic development solely as a city-run function. And by creating a board of directors, there's 17 in total from some of the big business leaders in our community, we've been able to get more of an arm's length agreement in place, and I think the achievements that we're going to realize will be huge. The part of the idea to create this was so that we could attract money from outside. We've had expressions of interest in the RDN, the Regional District of Nanaimo, and others, and we see also some municipalities wanting to step forward and making some investments in the Economic Development Corporation. The corporation just recently hired Susan Cudahy, the new EDO, Economic Development Officer. I really feel that this group has the wherewithal to create job opportunities, to incent people to come to Nanaimo and to see the opportunities that exist here. And I'm excited about it. I think we've also created the development review process, so we could sit down, 3 members of council and the developers, to try to deal with issues that arise out of permits, where there's been a delay or lag in time, whatever improvements and efficiencies can be developed. And as a matter of fact, at noon today, there was another meeting of that organization, and I really think that they're going to be able to create some opportunities. So in this election, I'm looking for your support. I'm John Ruttan, and I'm asking for your support for mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Jim Routledge.
My name is Jim Routledge. I'm running for mayor of Nanaimo because I believe in connection, community, and sustainable, responsible growth. I'm a leader, and I believe I'm the best candidate for the job. I've been part of several community initiatives in the past 30 years I've called Nanaimo home, and I have a vision for this city. My vision for Nanaimo is efficiency and balance. I want to attract people and grow the city, provide for that growth by moving people efficiently and sustainably. I want to make good use of the tools and the resources we have, like the Economic Development Corporation, to provide sustainable growth in a safe and caring community. I am a local developer, and I'm working to make the word developer far more inclusive. I've come to realize that development includes not just bricks, mortar, and new subdivisions. It also includes services like schools, recreation, and hospitals. And it includes social housing. I strongly support the low barrier housing and pledge to see the housing completed in Nanaimo. Fiscal responsibility is more than talking the talk. I support a core review that begins with consulting the citizens, examining where we spend our money and trimming the fat. The focus must be on maintaining quality services in a cost-effective manner. I particularly want to create jobs and strengthen our economy. I want people to want to come here, get them so interested in Nanaimo that they're lining up to invest their money. I have talked about working with the Nanaimo First Nations to build a pedestrian bridge to Newcastle Island. It is only one idea that will increase Nanaimo's beauty and appeal. It just happens to be one that I and others think is doable and is exciting. The fundamental message that I want to get out there for people is to tell me what they want. I know there's so much talk about what people don't want. I want you to tell me what you do want. Let's move Nanaimo forward together.
Thank you. Finally, we have Dan DiDio.
Hi everybody, my name is Dan DiDio, and I'm here on this election day to give you guys a choice. You guys haven't had a choice, I think, in a long time. I'm going to offer you thousands of jobs, tourism till the cows come home, lower taxes, as opposed to more taxes and empty government buildings and you know, everyone here is promising you a job, but no one has any specifics. I'm going to offer you details and specifics on jobs, and lots of them. And I wouldn't make a promise I couldn't keep. For specifics, I'm talking about large-scale production. You can go into immediate large-scale production here within a year. We can produce extracts for skincare. These are aminos that are only found in the northern kelp here. Only here it's found, and they're expensive, they're exports. They're all high-end hydroponics, high-end liquid vitamins for healthcare. There's a seasonal row on kelp here that comes through. When the row comes through, it's about 2 months. It's employment. On a large scale, you can produce over 100 million in surplus a year here. That'll give you anything you want. It's surplus as opposed to debts. I can give you quarterly dividends on your investments as opposed to $2,000 to $5,000 in taxes every year in bills. Imagine parking your boat over a sea-lit bed of kelp, an aquaria of fish below, and it's not going to cost a lot of money. It's just unprocessed logs, rope, and kelp. Planes flying over from Vancouver will know Nanaimo for this light show in the water. There's no need to spend $4 million on advertising for local businesses. It's right there. It's all incorporated into one project. Real estate will rock it, and I will not raise your taxes.
Thank you. So our first question today to Roger McKinnon. Explain why you would or would not work to make public the terms and conditions of former city manager Jerry Berry's departure and severance package.
That's a very good question. I guess what I've read in the paper, I'm not up to date on everything that happened, except that I understand, paid him out $480,000 for his 2-year contract. That was done in camera. So again, we don't hear about it publicly unless they're allowed to, I guess they are actually allowed to release it, because that isn't a provincial act that says you can't release anything that is in there. We just haven't heard. So what would I do? I guess I'd have to go talk to the lawyers from the city to find out what we can and can't do. Find out from staff as well on why it was done, I guess is the big thing. I would certainly want to know, dig into and find out a little bit of what is it, because we might find out that he signed the contract and there's nothing that is allowed to be released. So from not being involved in that, as our mayor was one of the people that was involved in that, so he'd have a lot more knowledge about that to me. So I'd certainly look into it again and find out as much information as I possibly could to see what is good for the citizens. Is it something we better know, we have to know, we should know? I guess those are the questions. And then again, legally, can we dig in and find out what actually happened and why? I think we know the reasons why it happened, is what everybody's saying, and so we'll have to, like I say, the big one is go find out. It's hard to do from sitting from the outside when I can't get any information to answer your question in full without saying it depends on the legalities, what we got to go do. And I would certainly never want to see that happen again, to make sure we don't pay out those kind of severance packages, because I know when the private sector, we certainly don't get those kind of pensions on the rest of us that we keep seeing climbing. And that's back to the question why people say, how are we going to get 0% taxes over the next 3 years? And that's exactly how it's going to be done, when you're making sure you're not paying paying out those kind of things, or again, just a lot more transparency. You'll see that in line what I've said before. We have to actually, question these things, listen, and then make a decision and lead with what we've got to go do. But it is questioning all the time.
So just a quick follow-up then. So you are saying that you would work toward making public that information with the qualifiers?
If I could
that
find
you
out, yes, I
outlined?
would. Absolutely. I mean, you got to qualify and say, are we legally allowed to go do that? And it is, again, that's transparent. Everything that happens there, our clients are the public, taxpayers. That's who. It's the same thing if you go to city, if you go to front counter, you go anywhere. It's got to be, what can I do to help you?
Right. Mayor Ruttan, the same question to you. 1 minute, please.
Well, first of all, remember that Mr. Barry is with the city 28 years continuously. And common law normally dictates that when a senior manager leaves, he or she is entitled to 1 month for every year worked. There is a contract in place at 7,000.01 that was signed by the previous mayor that allowed Jerry and any of the senior managers in place now up to 24 months severance in the event of separation. And that's exactly what he received. He was earning about $225,000 a year. He received 2 years severance for his 28 years. And when they factored in the car allowance and his time off, that's what it was. But unfortunately, it's a tough one. I want to get into more, but I guess am I going to get the wave on it?
You are, but the question is,
I
in
didn't-
your,
I-
in your second term, would
Yep.
you work to make public that information?
Well,
Because
let me say,
it is our understanding that as of October 15th, that it can be made public, yes?
well, let me say that first of all, there's some misunderstanding about how this was done. We held a public press conference. It was
Okay,
at,
we'll just interrupt you, just because we're on time here, though.
Okay.
So the question is, would you work to make public this information?
the information is made public. It was released to Derek Spalding of the Nanaimo Daily News, and he had a copy of it the last time I talked to him, still had a copy. It was filmed, videoed by A Channel, which is now CTV, and it was done live, and copies of the contract were handed out to everyone.
So you feel
So-
everything that can be made public has been made public?
It certainly was at a press conference, and that was almost 2 years ago now.
But there was a gag order in place.
There's no gag order.
On-
I was the spokesman for the city council, which the mayor normally is. And every time someone came to me and asked me questions about it, we were quite free to do that. And I do know city staff also provided additional copies of the separation agreement with Jerry on a number of occasions.
I don't want this to be a discussion between you and I think you're on the record. Mr. Routledge, please, same question, 1 minute.
Short answer, yes.
Okay.
No,
This is
seriously,
all
I have no problems at all going in and sharing whatever is available. Like
Do
this
you
is,
feel that we have as much information on this topic as we need?
as we need or we want? Because there's a difference.
Okay.
I mean, this is a bit of drama. I mean, this is a bit of, Peyton Place here in Nanaimo. I mean, I go back a long ways with Jerry. I sat with him when he was the assistant city clerk back in 1985, having lunch at the Blue Nose Chowder House, and how he was whining about going nowhere in his career. He had no place to go, and he was going to have to go somewhere else. And within a few months, Graydon Hayward came into being and plunked him from assistant city clerk into assistant city manager, and the rest was history. It was a wonderful stroke of luck. But like I say, as far as what comes from his firing, the drama behind it, I mean, I sense there's some real juicy bits in this, and I have no problems. I feel a blog coming on.
Right. So if you're mayor, we're going to get those juicy bits, is what you're saying.
Indeed.
Mr. DiDio, please, the same question.
Same thing. I can give you guys all the information that was available to me, but I put in things in place so that you wouldn't have people making $220,000 a year. I'd limit the wages to minimal. Like the most you're going to get out of me is $10,000 a month. Is $120,000 a year for government employees. I'd put cuts on wages right across the board to kill the debt, and I'd also set in laws so that if someone was going to leave like this, or just have a limit on the payout that's given to people that are dismissed or that do leave the council. That was way too much money to be given to any individual for a pension or a severance, especially in our current economic condition. That shouldn't be happening.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, for your answers to that question. Number two, we start with you, Mr. Mayor. It's a simple one. Do residential taxpayers in Nanaimo pay too much for the services they receive?
Well, they are probably paying slightly more now than they were, part of the new tax, property tax adjustments we're making. One of the concerns we had over the past was that industrial tax base was high, very high. And the previous councils, and this council follows it too, to start reducing those taxes down so that we are going to be able to retain businesses. And I'm sure people watching now will remember what happened with Catalyst in the 4 cities that they represented. In Campbell River, they took their mill down and disappeared. In the Crofton area, the residential rate was something like 27 times. I'm sorry, the industrial rate they were paying at the mill was something like 27 times the residential rate. In Nanaimo, it's around 7 times. So it has been an adjustment, and I think the people of Nanaimo are getting fair value for the tax base. When you look at all the amenities we have offered here, and you look at the facilities we've provided, as soon as someone says they don't want to pay more, they have to understand what they want to cut. Because you can't do both. You can't cut taxes and increase your facilities that everyone wants and expects. We have some first-class facilities in Nanaimo, and there's a cost to going with that too.
Great. Thank you. Jim Routledge.
Well, I think
Just a reminder, you have 1 minute to respond.
okay. The what we are paying for taxes is indeed significant. There's no doubt. I did a tour around some of my relatives in Eastern Canada this year, and I did find that our taxes are comparable. In fact, even somewhat lower than people that I know, that relatives in Ottawa, in Kingston, and in Toronto. But more importantly, I think the focus is on the wrong side of this equation. It's not so much the revenue as what we are spending, how we are paying. Any businessman will tell you that it's not what you sell, it's how you buy that really makes a difference in terms of how you get your profit and your value. And I really think that the focus needs to be inward at this point and say, okay, are we spending our money most effectively, most efficiently? And I think, you know, a really good example is going to come later because I'm out of time.
You do have 15 seconds when Philip gives you the high sign, though, so please finish your thought.
Well, basically, I was at the council meeting last night, and I took exception to a bylaw that came in for some short-term borrowing to cover potential credit card debts and cashing in securities. And this is quite frankly a trivial matter. This is something that is taking council's time and it is costing money. The reference by staff was that it was costing Nanaimo nothing. And I take great exception to that because that's a room full of expensive people and we have to watch their time.
So let me interrupt you now. So you're asking for efficiency in how we use our time and our money. The question was, as the mayor said, are we getting good value for what we're paying for?
Well, this is something for the core review process. We do have to bring in the experts, not only to analyze the
I'll
situation.
give you a chance to talk about core review down the road if you would like. I'm sorry, Dan, it's to you.
I think we're paying, our taxes are way too high. They've almost doubled in the last 8 years. And for what? A conference center? How many people go down and use that conference center? It's empty. It's millions a year in bills. For what? A conference? We can have conference anywhere. I just felt we were cheated on that whole thing. When you guys pushed it across to the city, you guys said it was profitable in Victoria and Vancouver, and it wasn't profitable. It created debts, and that was in good times. That's when we could have had surplus. We've got the second biggest city on the island, and we get the highest taxes and the lowest real estate value, thanks to bylaw and management here. But taxes have to be lowered. If you want business and sustainability, and you want jobs, you need low taxes, low margins for business, and no startup costs. Nice and simple, not millions of dollars in research to some corporate enemy from Ontario.
I think just to clarify your point, our taxes have gone up over the years, but you're not suggesting that they have doubled in 8 years because of the conference center?
Well, the conference centers contributed to that.
Thank you for clarifying that, then. Roger, the same question. I'm just going to repeat it. We haven't heard it in a while. Do residential taxpayers in Nanaimo pay too much for the services they receive? 1 minute to respond to what you've heard or that question, please.
My answer is yes, but it's better than what they used to. We used to, at one time, let's go back 10 years ago or more, we were, I think, the highest tax per capita for what we were at one time. So we have gone down on some issues, and the mayor at the time and council started getting the industrial and commercial rates down, and then residential did have to go up a little bit. But compared to other towns, we still have this yearly day of annual tax increases that you don't see in other business, in the in the business world, where it's do more with less, I think is what we have to do, and we have to increase revenues and figure out from the core review, figure out how hopefully economic development can help us. We've got to increase revenues and actually decrease services of some kind somewhere along. Does that mean inside the City Hall building? Does that mean figure out what we're going to do with the conference center? On top of that, on top of also just the residential for what we're getting, other cities actually reduce taxes. So I'd like to see us really look into that and figure out how they're doing it and why we're not. Because we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. Let's go see what communities actually do that and figure it out and copy from there.
Great, thank you. Jim, we're going to start with you on this round. Question number 3. Was there adequate consultation before selecting the Uplands Drive site for low barrier housing, and were any procedural rules not followed?
2 questions then. Was there adequate notice? No. Procedural rules, as far as I know. Actually, could you read that last part again?
And were any procedural rules not followed?
I don't know. I mean, the procedural rules, as far as they've come out, seem to be appropriate for the project. Like the ministry, the memorandum of understanding that was signed, all of that was, I think, properly handled. The steps in the, we're talking specifically the Uplands Road one.
Uplands Drive, yes.
Like why that site was selected is a good question. And quite frankly, I don't know all of the answers to that. I wasn't privy to it. I'd be happy to share it if I get into the office and I can find out what specific criteria were used. But as far as I know, that is it is a good location. I mean, it's a good location for just about anything, quite frankly. And that I'm quite happy, was done. The communication process leading up to it was abysmal. I mean, when that memorandum of understanding was signed, that's the point. That's the day at which, as mayor, I would have stepped forward and said, okay, everybody, get ready. This could be going next to you. And you'll need to know some information. So here it is. And let's start the learning curve. Let's go through the steps of figuring out all the different types of supportive housing, right from shelters to transition houses and everything in between, and learn where we fit and learn what our options are. Because that whole learning curve has been missing. And that's what I've been scrambling to try and keep up and get ahead of. And in just about every case, I do feel that people are moving towards the same conclusion that I came to, that there are options for there that are wonderful, that we'd be proud to live beside and that we would be happy to have. But it's just not good enough to be okay with it, to just say, I'll vote for it. Because it died once, okay? That's what happened on Bowen Road. It wasn't championed. There was no one standing up saying, I'm for it. And I'm the only one I trust to see that through.
Thank you. Mr. DiDio, the question is to you, please. 1 minute in response.
I don't think it was well planned out at all. You've got a business there that's been established for many years, has its clientele, and is doing well. They trusted the city and establishing themselves there. And you just throw this at them. You should have had my platform is free referendum, so this wouldn't happen. You can actually have this, everyone can just vote, and then you can decide where you want to put it. We can discuss things like this. Free referendum meaning that it's not going to be on the taxpayer's bill with the system. It just protects everyone from other communities' agendas, for people giving themselves pats on the back and raises, overspending and stuff. There's other ways to solve this. I've already motioned that you just put another level onto these buildings to make them profitable as opposed to giving us a debt every year. Economically speaking, the two ratios, there's a direct proportional in ratios here when you're talking about rents and taxes. If you're going to raise taxes, which you would be doing, putting these facilities in, you're not going to be able to lower rents, which is what you're trying to do. It's going to collapse. Eventually, that building won't sustain itself.
We're out of time on that one. Just to be clear, to go back, and I'll give you a moment to respond as I reiterate the question.
Sure.
Was there proper consultation? Did they break any rules, and how they did it?
I don't know all the details on whether they've broken any rules. I think obviously there's something went wrong because you got the community in a huge uproar. There's a huge conflict here. You want things that work with the community, not things that are just going to, give us more debts, more problems.
Roger, do you need the question again?
Please.
Was there adequate consultation before selecting the Uplands Drive site for low barrier housing, and were any procedural rules not followed?
Well, we're talking about the upland site, so absolutely there was not adequate notice given to neighbors whatsoever. They've known about that in camera, I know, months and months ago, I understand. Like they keep saying they've had 3 years to do this. They did, right from day one, they did the whole area wrong. You've got seniors sitting in the home, and I mean, you guys, I've got your letter to the editor, and it talks about what the poor guy that owns a senior home next door, and it's really about fear is what's created, and it's bad for them to have to, you have 360 people living next door, and there's 250 employees. They've said that he could lose up to 100 to 150 staff. Can you imagine? So every 100 people, he's going to have to lay off 60 staff, and we're housing 40 people. That's just one example in that area. We have to really be careful on that. There are other alternatives, and I just say, let's stop, look back, and see what we can do. Did they, to answer the last part, are they doing any procedurals? The way the city and province can do business, no, they didn't. The way a developer or a citizen trying to do a duplex, he can't do what they just did. He would have to go to public hearings. He would have to go, no matter if it's a duplex or whatever, so we'd have to do it different.
But procedure.
The procedure, as far as I know, I think because it's the city and because it's the province, they can actually same thing go.
You don't like it, but they did it right.
I think so.
Am I summarizing okay?
From what I've been told from staff.
Mr. Mayor, please.
Could you just read the first part
Yes.
of the beginning?
Was there adequate consultation before selecting the Uplands Drive site for low barrier housing? And were any procedural rules not followed?
Okay. I don't know that we could have done more on communication. One of the problems that we had, and when you're inside, you have obviously a great deal more information available than when you're outside. And one of the problems that we had, we wanted the province to step forward, was BC Housing and also VIHA, that were involved with making the final determination on this site. The city provided the site. And one of the things that we were trying to do was make it available to the public to know as early as possible. And for whatever reason, the ministry did not want to make a public announcement, and they made it very clear that the announcement on that site would be made by the province, not by the city. So we were working on their timetable. But I think, it fits with what we were trying to achieve. The memorandum of understanding on this low barrier housing was for 5 units and for 160 beds. And this balances it throughout the community. I think that's fair and equitable.
Thank you. Brings us to our fourth question. We're going to start with you, Dan.
Good.
That's our last question on low barrier housing, by the way, just so that everybody can relax about that one. How important is a hotel to the viability of the Vancouver Island Convention Center, and how should we make sure it gets built?
Oh, a conference center is already empty. It's already given us millions of dollars in debt. So you're going to build a hotel to add to that debt, to add to that misery, to add to our taxes. We're supposed to be lowering taxes. Where in the agenda of our government is hotels, managing hotels? That's not a government agenda. That's competing with local business, just like the conference center. You're going the wrong way. You're going to end up with an overtaxed, jobless slum city if you keep this up. Period. Forget about the hotel. If we had business here, you would have a proposal from a corporation saying we want to build a hotel here. Period. That's how it works. I don't know what's going on here, what's behind all these curtains, but we don't need a hotel.
Thank you. Roger, same question to you.
Can you repeat the question?
How important? I'm going to say the name
Yep.
of the building right this time too. How important is a hotel to the viability of the Vancouver Island Conference Center, and how should we make sure it gets built?
Again, by not knowing all the stuff from the inside that could happen, I have had the conversation. Obviously, a hotel from the outside looks like it is very important. So I had to think about that. So last week I went and talked to 2 of the different hotel operators, GMs of hotels, and they tell me that the occupancy in town somewhere between 45 on an average to 55%. If they do over 60, that's operating very well. So right now, if you add another 150 to 180 rooms that the city's talked about, all of a sudden that's going to knock everybody's occupancy down in town, and they're going to pick up because they're a new hotel. So they will pick up the business first with the conference center. It's going to help the conference center, but we're also giving them, $1.5 to probably $1 to $1.5 million tax free a year. So over 10 years, that could be up to $15 million. Kind of unfair maybe to some. So there is both sides of this. So it is unfair to the other side of the coast who's spending $8 million. So all of a sudden they're not getting theirs. Theirs didn't go up. So there's a couple of ways. We've got to do something, but the point is, do you give then somebody like the coast, have them take the lease over maybe? I'm not sure. There's some stuff we got to look at. Is there enough space downtown? Do people bus when you're from out of town and when you're on conferences? There's some other alternatives to do it. Change that building to something else. There's some other stuff.
Great, thank you. Mr. Mayor.
Okay, well, there's no question, but we need that hotel. Here we have a conference center that can seat 1,300 at a time, can feed 950 at a sitting, and we have probably fewer than 400 quality hotel rooms to draw on a 1 kilometer radius of the hotel, of the site. And so there's no question that the problem we're having right now, the taxpayers in Nanaimo are funding about $1 million a year shortfall on the conference center. And with the inability to handle larger conferences, that'll go on indefinitely. So something proactive has to happen. Some tough decisions have to be made. And the logical thing is to increase the number of beds available so that larger conferences can be held, and that's exactly what we're trying to do. We've tried to market that for 3 years now without success, and so now we're trying to offer, to incent the groups to come, some concessions. I think it's the right way to go, and we desperately need that conference center hotel.
Great, thank you. Jim, same question to you. 1 minute, please.
Well, getting a hotel built is important. There's no doubt it would complement the convention center and do a lot of the things that it's designed to do. Quite frankly, I think the problem is in attracting people to our area and making people want to be here, making people want to build a hotel. I know that at any one time there's a dozen people monitoring what's going on in Nanaimo, gauging whether or not the market is ready, the market is right. And like I say, we do have some very important features that we can explain the benefits to the world and get out and market. And I think the Economic Development Group is going to champion that in a great degree. We have a number of initiatives that we can move forward on that will, tell the world, market, as Roger is so well versed in doing, let people know what is good. However, I don't think that giving away taxes and putting a fire sale on our town is the way to do it. I think there are more constructive ways.
How long should we wait?
Oh, I wouldn't wait at all. I'd get on with it. We're
How
already
long
involved.
should we wait for the market to be right and for somebody to come in on their own and want to build us a hotel? Or should we just abandon it if that doesn't happen?
Well, I don't abandon the idea at all. It's a wonderful asset and it can be built on. But I do think we have to focus on what's going to draw people to this area. That's going to make them want to be here. Provide the attractions. The bridge to Newcastle. Yes. Open up like Stanley Park is to Vancouver. I'm sure that a lot of the hotels that got built around Vancouver were built because people wanted to enjoy the wonderful venues, the jewels that they have.
Great, thank you. Roger, we're back to you. Should we have a core review? If so, are you confident its costs can be recovered by identifying inefficiency at City Hall? If not, how can we be assured that City Hall is running efficiently? I don't think I need to read that second part.
No. Do I think we need a core review? The answer is absolutely yes. Any businesses, and I've operated quite a few businesses over 35 years, and we have to look at it every year. And a core review tells where we're at. I bring in consultants, as some of you know, I do own a hotel, so I can answer that one. We do have a hotel that we are doing very well at, and we bring in consultants to check on how we're doing or how we can increase our business or how we actually have to decrease it as well. We have accountants, and the same thing like the city does. Our city manager actually is an accountant. He's a CA, so is the number 2 Doug. And it's a matter of what are the services, what are we getting, and what are we paying for? Are we getting the best we can? And again, staff should not be intimidated. If they think they're doing a fabulous job, they should not be intimidated one iota on what we're doing. This should come in, and all of a sudden, maybe someone will come back and say, "You guys are doing a great job compared to Prince George, compared to Surrey, compared to somebody else." And that's what could happen. We could find out that maybe there isn't what the public keeps to thinking, that there is a lot of stuff we can replace. Maybe there is, but that's exactly what we've got to go find out. So by doing the core review, it's going to go through all the different management companies, and that ties in with zero-based budgeting. Let's start at the same thing and say, look, at how are we doing this? Are we spending too much money? And like I say, most of the time now what happens with this economy and any businesses, they've got to try and increase revenue and decrease expenses. That's just part of what we have to do these days through the times. We've got problems we think we have, just think what the United States is going through. And they're having to learn, so we're having to learn on how to run everything more efficient and use what we've got. And the same thing with the core review. It might be some of these contracts saying, you know what, these are a lot sweeter than anybody else's. Might say, you know what, you're equal with everybody else. But do we have to be equal to everybody else is the other question. We want to be better. We want to have Nanaimo as a place where you want to come here because your taxes are reasonable, the commercial rates aren't at a hand like they are right now. They're very expensive. So we've got to, those are the kind of things that the core review is going to tell us. And what do we have to do? And again, I have a real good saying. It says, plagiarism is when you steal it from one source. Market research and development is when you steal it from more than one source. So we've got to do a lot of market research and development from what cities are actually running efficiently and not running overboard. And I think they're out there, and it's a matter of us spending some time and then figuring out how we're going to do that. And yes, we'll recover our money.
But you seem to be saying, though, that you're not concerned if you don't find an efficiency, that if you find everything is running well, that that's useful information as well.
Well, it's very useful because right now what happens is everybody's picking on city staff and saying, they're doing this wrong and they're doing that, and the council, if we all of a sudden, by having out the core review is telling us something, get back, you know what, compared to others, then we got to say, who are we comparing it to? Is it other cities? Are their taxes are the highest in BC? Is it their taxes, and they're not getting the services? They don't have as many swimming pools? So those are the kind of things we got to look at the same time.
Do you know what a core review would cost us?
You keep hearing different numbers, and again, I wouldn't just settle on saying I want to get one to go do it, because it wouldn't, because you'd say, okay, give me some prices, so it's probably going to cost you anywhere. It could cost from $60,000 to $150,000. It could totally vary, but again, could we save those efficiencies? We sure could. If we would have, instead of the new annex building $16 million, renovated the old building for $6 or $7 million, could have saved $10 million right there, or you want your conference center, maybe taking 40,000 square feet of the conference center, that would have been the new city hall. There's some more savings. So there's other ways of doing it. We just got to really look and think out of the box. Think about what we could do instead of keep spending money and my taxes keep going up.
Mr. Mayor, do we need a core review?
Well, I'm not sure that we do, and let me qualify that. At the beginning of every term, our senior staff sits down with councillors, particularly new ones, and spends a lot of time going over every single aspect of how the city runs. And I would support a core review once I was completely aware of what the final determination was going to be. And if it really is that they want to cut staff and eliminate senior positions, I'm not in favor of that. I think we've got a very good core of committed, hardworking people in the city. There are challenges and so on, but by and large, I know a lot of communities go through these core reviews, spend $100,000 or $150,000, put it on the shelf, and go on for the next thing. So if there is something meaningful that would result from it, I would support it. I'm not sure there is, and I think we do get a great deal of information from the staff right now, and I'm satisfied that the information we're getting is accurate.
Thank you. Jim Routledge, please.
Well, I'm looking forward to a core review, definitely. Absolutely. One of the things that I've been very curious about is to do with the number of facilities that have been built by the city over the years. And I'm referring to things like the Nanaimo Aquatic Center, the Ice Arena, the Oliver Road Recreation Facility, and of course the Convention Center. One of the techniques the way those projects were built was under a process called construction management. And without going into a lot of analysis, basically that means you've got one construction manager that basically makes decisions, hires an architect, gets the plans, and all the bills come in and get paid. The unique thing about that was it was the city that set up the organization to pay those bills. It wasn't like a regular construction company that would have all their staff and would have all the trades, send on their bills and pay them. So this process of building those things all brought a lot of people into the city. I don't know what happened after that. I'd like to know. I'd like to take a close look and see if after those projects are done, what happens with those people. Do we have an efficient, lean, mean organization to do what we need in the city?
So you're suspicious that we're not running efficiently now?
I think there's opportunities to cut fat. I think there are places that will be exposed through the core review process. And I'm just giving one example of something that I'm curious about.
Great, thank you. Dan, please, the same question.
I've been through lots of core reviews in Ottawa for a couple of years, and they're a lot of BS. They take a lot of time and they're big bills, and usually nothing ever happens. If we do a core review, I'd like to be there personally to go over it, just to see where fat can be cut. And a lot of the new hiring that's been done over the last 2 years, especially this corporate entity you guys love so much, I would probably cut their budget. I would cut them right out. That's $4 million a year. We could build 2 of these houses for free every year and house all our poor with the money that we spent on essays. So if I could walk through it personally, I would do that just so we could cut some fat. Yeah, I think there is. We should go through a core review, but just keep it on budget. We don't want a big bill on this, and we want to see some stuff done. I'd go for an 8% rate, or sorry, 8% cut on government employees around the board, all around the table, just to get it done, and then you have your surplus, and then you can do your review.
So I'm sorry, just to clarify, our core review is BS, or you want a core review, or you want a core review that's BS?
Oh, I want to be part of that core review so it's done properly and it does something, not just give us a big bill. And a
So
lot
are you
of
talking
time.
about doing the review internally or bringing in an outside agency? I think is.
I want to walk
Roger's-
through it. I want to walk through it with whoever's doing it, and I want to make sure that when we do contract out that core review, it's done cheaply. I don't want a big bill for the taxpayer.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, we're going to start with you this time. A water treatment plant and City Hall Annex are big capital projects already on the books. How will you allocate capital funds now and in the long term?
Just so I understand, you mean allocate for those two projects or for other projects
For
that come along?
projects I want to steer the conversation away from water treatment and City Hall Annex. Talk about what projects, big projects, long-term thinking we might see in the future.
Well, you know, we are somewhat handicapped with the commitments we've already made. But the water one is not going to go away, and I think we need to recognize that we have about a 10-year supply of water available to us. And after that, we're going to have to find alternate sources of water, and this will be a huge, major expense. It's not water treatment, and it's not the annex, but it's a major expense we're going to face because very shortly we expect to hear that Landsville is going to conclude an arrangement with the city for more water. The cruise ship terminal is going to be supplying potable water to the ships, and we're going to run out of water. So it's going to be a balance, but between trying to qualify the projects that are necessary for the community and providing the necessary funding for it. And it's not, the next 2 or 3 years are going to be very difficult indeed.
The water treatment plant is going to sink any other project that we might want between now and then?
It's going to have a huge impact on it. It's $65 million. And, you know, it's a paradox because on one hand, VIHA has come along and said you must bring infiltration onto your water system. And yet when we've asked for some kind of relief from it, it isn't possible. So it's really a provincial mandate in that respect, and we're obliged to respond to it and spend that money.
Thank you. Jim, same question, please.
Well, just to touch on the two you don't want to talk about, the water treatment plant, definitely have to do it. I mean, we're trying to attract people from Ontario, and if you've even heard the word Waterton, you don't even think twice about it. You just do it. And I think that is one of the things you can't, you just have to bite your tongue and do it. The annex building, I've already taken a good close look at it. I've had the plans, I've looked at it, I've made a number of suggestions. It's on my list. The first day on the job, I'm going to be looking at making some changes in the way that is organized, the way it's structured. I've got some input I'd like to offer at least and see if that's available. With respect to the other capital spending going forward, this is all about what do people want. I mean, I know what I want, and I've made it pretty clear, but I need to hear what everybody else wants. What's brewing? We've got some opportunities here, and we do have a budget. So, you know, I'd like to hear from people.
Dan, please.
How do you know we're not going to have water in 10 years? Ever since I've been here, we always had a dry spell every summer. It rains like crazy all winter. There's a lot of water here. I've had the water tested several times since I've been here. Perfect mineral balance, perfect pH. There's nothing wrong with the water here. I've lived in cities where water's not good, and this isn't it.
So if we save the $65 million on water treatment, what are you going to spend it on?
We'd have referendum. We could spend it on what we needed, what we wanted. I'd put it into something that cleans our water and air and gives us jobs and tourism, obviously, and brings back the local cod into the waters. Like if you want tourism, people coming here, like if you can go out there in your canoe and you can pull in a big 20-pound fillet, because they always bite, you're going to have money and tourism and a great place to live. You know, and that's what you want. And not a lot of taxes. And your house can be worth $2 million, and your taxes are going to lower.
Thank you. Roger, the same question, please.
Excuse me. Infrastructures, I mean, infrastructure we have to look at, and I keep hearing about it all the time that, you know, it's getting old or whatever else. And you go back to the Frank Ney days where we've kind of serviced all the way through town. So in one sense, after this many years later, it's actually a good thing because we don't have to spend the money that other towns are doing right now with their sewer and water on on some issues that we'll have. The water issue, the funny part is Larry McNabb forever just told me we have the best water in Canada, and if you answer his phone, it says the paradise where water is, and we've never had an issue, and he was on the water board for 20 years, I think. So that one I'm still having a little hard time on it, and if VHA, I understand one person or one committee for VHA or whatever for the government has said that we have to do it. I would like to look a little further because if, as John says, it's mandated, well, how does then Victoria get away with pumping their sewer out into the ocean still after 25 years? VHA and everybody's been hounding them saying you can't do that. So that, we need things like to help with tourism. Fire halls, obviously, they were talking about the Hammond Bay Fire Hall would have to relook at. Taxpayers, we've got to ask the public, what else are we doing? We've got a lot of seniors here, so more senior housing, more senior, what's got to go on with that? We've got those, and how do we help VIU and the students keep their jobs and come back here?
Thank you. Just before we move on from capital spending, does nobody think we need a multiplex? Philip does. I'm asking for Philip.
We need jobs.
Does nobody see that anywhere in our 5
I
to
do.
10-year plan? A
Within
multiplex?
10 years for sure, and even
Right.
shorter.
With as minimal cost to the taxpayers.
Why does it have to be
Exactly.
why does it have to be the taxpayer? Victoria Save on Foods isn't. The ones in Chilliwack aren't. The ones in Kelowna, they're not.
Right.
So why do we always right away go look for that we have to go? Why we can do partnerships at least.
Let's let
Well,
the
I
mayor get
agree
in.
with Roger, and I would love to see a multiplex, and I'm certainly not opposed to it in any way. But I am very concerned about a subsidy, and I don't think the taxpayers in Nanaimo are prepared to do it. We've got a subsidy on the Aquatic Center, subsidy on the Ice Center, we've got a subsidy on the Port Theatre, we have a subsidy on all the buildings in town, and obviously the library. The Conference Center is another example. There isn't an appetite to support it financially, but if it can be done, as Roger pointed out an example in Victoria, I'm 100% behind it. We need it, but the taxpayers are not, in my opinion, prepared to underrate the losses of another corporation like that.
I think Philip will help pay for it. Does anybody else want to in on this down
but
there?
at the same time, they weren't with the conference center. It was a 49 to 51 vote. Should we be doing that? The airport,
still a majority of that,
the
right?
airport in Comox Valley, they had us 87% to say we're going to go ahead with it. Those are referendums you want. Right now, they're doing one down in Langford, and if they don't get 75%, they're not proceeding with it.
I'll let you know.
If there's a deal on the table, if somebody comes forward and there is a deal, somebody wants to build a multiplex, fine, let's take a look at it. Let's look hard at it. Let's negotiate. That's something that seems to have been missed here. Okay, we do have a lot of good things that we can work with and we can put on the table and help people. If it comes down to a deal, even with the hotel or the multiplex or the foot ferry, okay, where somebody is really close to making this deal work and needs a little help, fine, let's take a look at it. If need be, go to a referendum, but share the opportunity amongst the people and say, here it is. This is what
I
it's
think
going
we've
to.
got a consensus on this one.
Thank you.
So, form a committee. Dan, did you want in on this? If we give you your kelp bed, can we get a multiplex?
I just don't want to go past budget. I don't want to go past any of the budgets. I don't want to raise taxes. If we can do it without raising taxes, and if the people vote in and say saying they want it, then sure.
It's unanimous. Jim, we're starting with you this time. Is the Economic Development Corporation the key to a revitalized industry sector and, in turn, more homegrown jobs?
Yes. Next question.
How so? Please explain.
Oh, it's a wonderful asset. This is the opportunity. I mean, this really is, John's to his credit. I mean, this was a wonderful thing that got set up. Things weren't functioning. There were blockages and things weren't moving. So we have this wonderful organization that's set up with a mandate. Although, it's not set up. It is in structure and it is there, but the people are just coming in. It's just like a fledgling plant that's coming out of the ground. And we can't expect too much of it at this point. We have to let it set. We have to let it find its legs, find some structure, get meetings, the people that are involved. It is going to take some time before it can actually start to really, hit the road and go. So I'm looking forward to it, and I think we have to be patient. And that, yes, it is the tool for the job that you described.
Excellent. Thank you. Dan.
I'm not paying millions a year for research. We're in debt. We've got taxes over our heads. We've got no jobs here. If you want to look into getting people here, or businesses here, you'll cut out their startup fees. You'll lower taxes. You'll create something that's going to bring them here. Tourism, something that's a little different. I wouldn't pay someone $2 million to give me a research paper. That's not going to happen. They'd be out.
Do you think there's no value in the Economic Development
I think they're
Corporation
doing the
as
job that we should be doing as council and mayor. Why would I pay someone $2 million or $3 million a year to do my job? I have a salary.
Thank you. Roger, same question, please.
Does it have a benefit? Absolutely. The only thing, I'm a little frustrated, why did it take a year and a half to find one from the last economic development officer? They took that long to put in place with the present council, and that kind of upsets me going, if we were in, I refer to in the private practice, we would have to solve that problem within 4 to 6 months. We'd have to replace somebody to make sure that our business continually runs and make sure people know about Nanaimo instead of waiting. Then at the same time, we spent, I think, $40,000 or $60,000 to a company to go look for somebody. Don't you think if we're going to pay a six-figure salary, a lot of EOs across the country, going through a winter time of last year in Ontario or somewhere across the whole country, they shouldn't be coming and hearing about Nanaimo if we're putting it out there that Nanaimo's a place to come and do some business and we're going to pay you that kind of money? Because I know some of the other ones aren't making that. I understand the person we have, I've talked to her, she's going to do a fabulous job. She seems to be, from what I see already, really, knows what she's going to go do, so I'm really pleased with that. I'm just, again, takes so long to get anything done. We got to get a move on it and get these things done, or we're going to wait another years all the time. We seem to just falling behind everybody.
Great, thank you. Mr. Mayor.
Well, I have great faith in it. I think the Economic Development Corporation is going to do a great job for us, and I think the advantage of being at arm's length, where it can attract funding from outside Nanaimo. In the past, I know that when different corporations were asked if they would be prepared to commit some more money to create different opportunities, their response was always the same: I'm paying taxes, and that's all you're going to get. And as a result, we've spun off this one, and we've got an incredible board of directors on it, 17 of the business leaders in our community. And I think with a new EDO, and somebody, I think that Jim mentioned earlier, I mean, we can't expect miracles. Ms. Cudahy has been on the job about 3 weeks now, so I think we have to allow a certain learning curve. But I think the reality is it's going to pay off. I think it's the right way to go. I think it was the right decision to commence. It did take longer than I wanted to, but it's there now, and we're going to work with it.
Thank you. Jim.
The question is,
Oh, I started with you.
Yeah, I was wondering too.
Did you want to answer it again? I was looking at the clock and I got more time than I thought now because I don't have to do that again. This is our final question. We're starting with you, Dan. The city's budget and financial plan are available on its website. Have you reviewed them, and how have you used this information to formulate your platform?
I haven't reviewed I've reviewed some of the budget, not everything. I'm just my platform is basically just jobs and tourism, surplus instead of debt, and cutting down on the government's access to our money. The way I look at it is, if you're going to give us a 10% property tax raise, give yourself a 24% personal salary raise, you can't go opening up different sectors or different.
If I can just interrupt, Dan, if you could confine yourself to my question, I will give you a closing statement at the end where you can rail against salaries of councillors if you wish.
Yeah, well, I just think everything should be tighter. They should be tightening up on our spending, and we shouldn't be just giving away all this money, millions every year
Great.
on new organizations doing the same thing.
Thank you. Roger, the question is to you.
Have I? Yes, I have looked at it. Have I reviewed every bit of it? No, pretty hard to do. I've asked for information that city staff when I have asked for anything, has been great. I've met with Al Keenan, our city administrator, had a great 2-hour meeting with him. Met with Doug Holmes, our number 2 up there as well, and I'd met with Ted Swaby, our city manager as well, and Toby Seward, the head of our planning. So I have gone through and met him, down to the Ron Lambert, our fire chief as well, and asked him. He showed me a big PowerPoint on when they're at. So I've actually gone through and asked him on what information, what can we take from it, and did talk about core reviews and did talk about some issues on that we would have to look into, and certainly then my business partner happens to be a chartered accountant as well, so it's easier when we do stuff. I'll look at it with him at the same time because it does make a little more sense. And we can read through them. And by being in business, I have read through budgets and go through them. And there's some improvements that we can make. There's no doubt about it. And I'm there as the same thing. We're there to help. It's their job, but it's the vision that the council and mayor put into, and then it's up to them to put the things into play.
How much of a role did those documents play in the formulation of your campaign and the points that you've been making?
Quite a bit, actually. Lots, because then at the same time, I've got also, by working in other cities, consulting over the last couple of years, and the business I've been at, I've been able to meet other mayors from other towns. So I've met with them a lot. In fact, I just had lunch with one of them on Sunday, another one as well. So I've been able to tap in and ask what they do and how they can actually do it. So, like I said earlier, it's not plagiarism, it's market research and development, and make sure we find out what other communities are doing and what can we take the best of them and not the worst of them. We only want the best anywhere we can do it. So that's so it has played a lot. It's important stuff.
Mr. Mayor, I apologize for the format of the question. Obviously, you have a little bit more inside knowledge than some of the other candidates, but if you could give us your thoughts on that.
Well, you know, we do go through every year a budget analysis in great depth, and you know, what questions come to mind are raised by all the council members, and information is provided by staff. I think we go through a very comprehensive review of it all, and I'm satisfied that the major issues are being addressed. And I can tell you, we have people on council who probe for very deeply for this information. So I don't think there's much of anything that is overlooked or missed unless we have inadvertently not asked the question. I think the process is open and fair, and I think the results and the information that I've received over the 3 years has been adequate to my way of thinking.
Great, thank you. Jim, if you don't mind, I'm just going to read the question one more time for you. The city's budget and financial plan are available on its website. Have you reviewed them, and have you used this information to formulate your platform?
Yes, I have reviewed them. I have taken a look at them. Have I analyzed them in detail and used them to form my platform? I wouldn't go that far with that. $129 million is what I believe we spend. It's a little bit separate from the actual money that's put aside for capital and various reserves. I have one of the best CAs around. Doug was number 12 in Canada, I believe, on his CA exams, a young buck, and he charges me thousands of dollars for the work that he does for me every year. And I learned vividly in my commerce marketing degree that financial statements have to be prepared. They have to be prepared very well, and if you can't do it yourself, then you pay somebody to do it right. And I am proud of the work that Doug has done for me. I have not asked him to look at this, and I intend to. That's one of the first things that I'm going to do, is to have an independent, my own guy coming in, and I want to be able to have him give me input as to where we go with this, because I am a marketer first and foremost. I am not a finance guy, so I rely on expertise like that.
Why not have them do it now?
Well, it's a little question of what's going to happen on Saturday.
Okay, fair enough. We're to our closing statements now. I'll give you each a minute. I promise not to interrupt. So any final thoughts you have, what we've discussed, or things that we haven't touched on that you wish to raise, please use the time as you see fit. And Roger, we're back to...
Why don't we go the opposite way instead then? Start with I had to go first, so I should be able to go last, shouldn't I? Am I closing?
What's that? I guess if Dan agrees, we can do that.
I don't agree.
Please get us started, Roger.
You can always try. You have to get consensus. So, I think most have read my issues, or we've talked about it, and there's quite a few that keep getting brought out. And everything you'll see is mine is talk about consulting. Consulting with the public more. You got to figure out what is done, but working as a team approach. The team is really what we've got to do, and I think it's been broken. The team meaning mayor and council, staff versus public taxpayer. Right now, it feels like we got a team of 3. We need a team of 1, which is all put together. And our competition actually is other cities and on Vancouver Island and other cities in BC. We're fighting for the same kind of money. It is the school money. It is hospital money. It is for more sports facility. It is, and we're watching other people go around us. Like in the Comox Valley's got this new $4.7 million tourism building right on the highway there that they got free money. So there's a lot of that kind of. Langford has $40 million worth of sports facilities that they're doing without raising taxes. There's a lot of things we really have to look into a little deeper and think totally out of the box and what we can do to make sure Nanaimo, right now, from now on, just gets talked about all over the province that we are the best place to go live. These guys are making a change and they want to do something.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor.
Well, I'm very proud of what Nanaimo's achieved in the past, and I think we have a very, very bright future indeed. And I am ever confident that that Conference Center Hotel will be a reality in the near future. I'd like to see it in the next 3 years. I'm also very, very confident that the fast passenger-only service will be up and running again. And when you look at the infrastructure that's already in place, the Canada line goes right out to the airport in Vancouver now. I don't think there's been a better opportunity for it to be reestablished than right now. When you look at the property values in Nanaimo at about 360,000, you look at Victoria at about 600, 620,000, and you look at the average home in Vancouver at over $1 million, I think that fast ferry could really be a huge economic generator for us. And to be able to live and the lifestyle that we enjoy in Nanaimo and to work in Vancouver is the best of both worlds. And that ship, that high-speed ferry, will do that.
Thank you. Mr. Rutledge.
I will attract people to Nanaimo. My vision includes everyone in our community. I have 30 years of history here. I have a university education. I have good health and energy, and I want to apply that in a leadership role at City Hall. Some of the projects that we have been focusing on are lofty and honorable, but they are out of our direct control. We need to make Nanaimo the place to be, the place to invest in, the place to live, work, and play. It is important to me to act as well as talk about the issues. As a Nanaimo builder, I have built green right from the start. My own house is the highest built green designation available, platinum. When the issue of social housing came up, I made 3 trips to Victoria and 1 to Kelowna to tour low barrier housing projects and talk to the neighbors and the people who live there and the people who work there. I made my decisions based on good, valid information, and I'll get as much of that firsthand as possible. I'm committed to this work. I'm a successful business person, and I want to give back to my community that brought me to where I am today. Vote Jim Routledge for mayor.
Thank you. Mr. DiDio, please wrap us up.
I'm not talking about research to bring people here. You know, if you're a prospect or a businessman, you're going to go where it's viable for you, where you're going to make your money, regardless of how you want to advertise this place. It's got lots of natural beauty that you have to invest in, and that'll get you to where you want to go with tourism, jobs, and local surplus. So I'll give you jobs instead of taxes. I'll give you surplus and profit instead of empty buildings. I'll give you free secondary education for all your kids without raising taxes. Half my salary, because I don't need a check, to be honest. Half my salary, I'm going to put fruit trees across the city, so we can have fruit all year round. More tourists than you'd be able to know what to do with. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make this city a global example, a stage for everyone to see, and for everyone here to enjoy.
Right. Good. Thank you. That brings us to the end of our schedule today. On behalf of the Nanaimo Daily News, the editorial staff here, thank you all so much for taking part and your participation in our discussion today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gail.
Thanks.